The story of the single dad and his little boy had already spread like wildfire inside the company. From the first job interview where everyone stared until the CEO herself stepped in, to the second chapter where the dad's strength and his son's quiet courage turned a presentation into an unforgettable moment. People were whispering, employees were inspired, and the CEO had started looking at the man not just as an applicant, but as a symbol of resilience. But the real test was yet to come, a test neither the father nor his little boy expected. It was a normal morning when the dad received a call from the company's HR department. He was invited to attend an exclusive leadership assessment day where only top-tier candidates would be tested for their ability to lead under pressure. The position he was fighting for wasn't just an ordinary job anymore. It was a management role that would change his life, give him stability, and allow him to give his son the future he deserved. With a deep breath, he said yes. The morning of the assessment, the dad dressed in his best suit. He looked at his son, who was sitting on the couch holding his little backpack. The boy had grown used to accompanying his father everywhere, and his father had grown used to the silent support of his child's presence. But this time, the dad hesitated. Should he bring his boy again? Would people understand? Or would they think he was irresponsible? The thought haunted him, but when his son's little hands slipped into his, he knew the answer. He wasn't going to hide his life. He wasn't going to pretend to be someone else. His son was part of his story, and if the company couldn't accept that, then it wasn't the right place. When they arrived at the corporate headquarters, the room was already buzzing. Dozens of highly qualified candidates in expensive suits were preparing for the day. Some of them glanced at the boy and exchanged smirks, but the father stood tall. He took a seat, gave his son a coloring book, and prepared for what was to come. The first challenge was a group activity where each candidate had to work with a team to solve a complex business problem. The father listened carefully, speaking up only when necessary. He didn't shout or push his ideas onto others, but every time he spoke, his words carried weight. His calm presence and logical thinking started winning the respect of the group. Meanwhile, his little boy sat silently at the edge of the room, sketching in his book, occasionally glancing at his dad with admiration. The second challenge was unexpected. Each candidate was asked to give a short motivational talk about leadership. Many spoke about profits, strategies, and personal achievements. When it was the father's turn, he paused, looked at his son, and then spoke with honesty. He didn't talk about himself. He talked about responsibility. He spoke about waking up every morning, knowing that someone else's entire world depended on him. He spoke about resilience, about never giving up even when everything seemed impossible, and about leading not through power, but through love and consistency. The room went silent. Even the most skeptical executives leaned forward, listening, and then came the twist. Halfway through the assessment, the CEO herself entered the room. She wasn't there to observe silently this time. She was there to challenge. She called the father to the front and gave him a scenario. Imagine one of your employees is about to lose everything, and your decision alone could change their life. But making that decision might cost the company money. What would you do? The father thought for a moment, then answered, iCompany is built on people, not just numbers. If we sacrifice our people for profit, we lose both. I would find a way to protect the person and inspire the team to recover the losses together. Because loyalty and trust build success far stronger than fear ever could. The CEO looked at him for a long moment, then nodded slightly, her expression unreadable. By the end of the day, the father was exhausted. His son, however, had done something surprising. On the last page of his coloring book, the boy had drawn a picture of his father standing in front of a group of people with a crown above his head. He tugged on his dad's sleeve and whispered, "Oo're the boss, Daddy." The father smiled, tears threatening to fall, but he held himself strong. The results were announced the following week. Candidates gathered in the same hall, nervous and restless. One by one, names were called, positions assigned. When the CEO finally stood up with the last envelope, she looked around the room and then directly at the father. She said, sometimes leadership is not about what you can achieve alone, but about what you represent for others. Leadership is about humanity, about courage, about the ability to turn weakness into strength. That is why we are not only offering this man the position, She paused, the room holding its breath. But we are creating a new role for him, a leadership position that didn't even exist until today, because true leaders don't just fit into boxes, they create them. The entire room erupted in applause. The father's heart pounded, and his son leapt into his arms, whispering, "I told you, Daddy." For the first time in years, the father felt the crushing weight of survival lift from his shoulders. He wasn't just an applicant anymore. He was proof that resilience, honesty, and love could break barriers. And as he stood there, holding his son in the middle of the cheering crowd, he realized that this was more than a job. It was the beginning of a new life. The CEO later admitted to her executives, "That boy reminded us all why we work. We build companies not just for profits, but for families, for people like them." And so the single dad who once walked nervously into a job interview with his son became the man who inspired an entire organization. His journey wasn't just about finding a job. It was about redefining what strength truly means. And in the end, it wasn't just the company that changed his life. It was he and his little boy who changed the company forever.